Have you ever felt alone? Like the entire world was against you? Have you had to face storms without anyone accompanying you? Today I want to tell you the story of a wolf who was expelled from his pack and forced to survive in solitude. Stay, because this story will transform you and make you see loneliness not as a punishment, but as the fire that forges the greatest. Once upon a time there was a strong young wolf with the spirit of a leader. He was born deep in the northern forests, where the winters were long and cruel, and only the strongest survived. From a young age he was noticeably different, not because he was the biggest or the fastest, but because he had something others didn't: determination in his gaze and fire in his soul. While the other cubs played, he watched. While others blindly followed the leader, he asked why. His instinct made him question, learn, and grow. Fate seemed to have something special prepared for him, but life, as always, had other plans. Just as he was beginning to understand his place in the pack, he was betrayed. Some feared his potential, others envied, and one night, without explanation or warning, he was expelled. Alone, wounded and broken, he did not understand why. He had given everything for his pack, but in the blink of an eye he had no one. He found himself in the middle of the wilderness under a moonless sky with the echo of his own howl as his only company. And there his true story began. The first nights were hell. The cold not only froze his bones, it also froze his soul. There was no shelter, no warmth, no one, only trees creaking with the wind, only crows whose terrifying calls accompanied his fear, sadness, and pain. Shadows that seemed to devour everything, and the hunger, that gut-wrenching hunger that not only emptied his stomach, but also his spirit. It was an emptiness that wasn't filled with meat, nor with water, nor with rest. It was the kind of hunger that burns you from the inside, that makes you question whether you're alive or simply resisting death. The nights became eternal. The time seemed to stretch like a divine punishment. The icy wind whispered memories, the betrayal, the sight of his own turning their backs, the cruel silence of those he had protected. Sometimes he closed his eyes, hoping not to open them again, but something, a spark, an ancestral voice, a rebellious beat pushed him to continue. It was as if within him, in the deepest part, dwelled an indomitable force that did not accept the end. The next day at dawn, he went in search of some prey, and suddenly saw a group of elk that were eating the roots of the grasses that were under the snow. The wolf launched into the chase, but he hunted clumsily. He failed, he fell, and each mistake brought him closer to death. But something inside him refused to give up. He didn't know why, but he had the feeling that he should continue. And that solitude was not his end, but part of his transformation. Days passed, he faced mountain lions, bears, and other predators, and the wounds began to mark his body. Scars not of defeat, but of evolution. One day he approached another pack, hoping for refuge, perhaps understanding, but he was met with growls and teeth. An outsider was not welcome. For them, he was a different threat, and the different in the wild world is eliminated. He was attacked and pursued. He howled in pain, but not out of fear. And in the midst of his flight, something changed within him. That day, he understood something brutally clear. There was no turning back. There was no place to return to. If he wanted to survive, he had to become something more. Not just a wolf, he had to be a legend. One night in his solitude, while resting under a frozen and starry sky, the wolf felt the silence completely engulf him. There was no wind, no howls, no nothing, only his ragged breath and the distant crunch of the frost-covered branches. He looked up at the immense blanket of stars, but he felt no peace. He felt the weight of his own existence. He felt that the universe was too big and he was too small. He closed his eyes and inside began to wonder, why did this path fall to me? Why did I have to lose everything? Why do I feel that even if I walk 1,000 leagues, I won't get anywhere? There was no answer, only the distant crackle of the dry branches and the icy whisper of the wind that did not embrace but scratched. Was I born to walk alone all my life? Is there no space in the world for me? He felt that time had stopped, that his entire existence was summed up in that instant. A broken creature, lost in the midst of the immensity, carrying questions he didn't know who to address. He no longer howled from pain, not even inside. He was just empty, as if his soul had also frozen. And it was then that the absolute silence was interrupted by a soft, almost imperceptible sound. The wolf opened his eyes. His senses, dulled by pain, slowly awakened. Something was approaching. It was not a threat. It was not prey. It was something else, something different. From the top of an old oak descended calmly a majestic figure, an owl of silver-grey plumage, with eyes as deep as the night itself. The wolf looked at him with suspicion, got up, but did not growl. Something in that being disarmed him without the need for words, and then the owl landed right in front of him on a twisted, frost-covered branch. He said nothing at first, only observed him as if he could see not his body but his wounded soul. The wolf lowered his gaze as if ashamed of what he had become. But the owl was still there, immobile, serene, firm, and, finally, with a voice as ancient as the forest itself, a voice that was not heard with the ears, but with the soul. The owl spoke. "You are not alone by mistake, young wolf," continued the wise one with a slow voice. "You are alone because those who should accompany you are not yet ready to walk by your side, and you are not yet ready to guide them." The wolf looked at him intently, and for the first time without growls or shields, he let out what he carried inside. "I didn't ask for this," he said with a broken voice. "I would give anything to go back, to have my pack back, my home. What did I do so wrong to deserve this? Why did everyone turn their backs on me? All I wanted was to belong, just that." The owl listened to him in silence. He did not interrupt him. He did not judge him. He waited because the wise know that the soul first needs to empty itself before being filled. "I'm tired," continued the wolf, lowering his gaze. "Tired of fighting alone. Sometimes I just want to give up, sleep and not wake up, because this emptiness, this cold, I can't bear it anymore." There was a long silence, and then the owl spoke with a calm that seemed to envelop the whole night. "Do not be afraid of your solitude. It is not a punishment. It is a stage, a sacred step that only those who have something great to deliver to the world pass through." The wolf slowly raised his gaze. His eyes were still wounded, but they no longer fled. "And what if it never passes?" he asked. "What if this pain stays forever?" The owl gently lowered his head, as if honoring his question. "Pain always leaves marks, but not all of them are wounds. Some become maps. The suffering you understand becomes wisdom, and the wisdom you share becomes guidance for others." "I don't know if I am capable," the wolf whispered. "I don't feel strong. I feel broken." The owl took a small step on the branch and looked at him with tenderness. "You feel broken because you are no longer the same, but that is not weakness, it is evolution." The wolf fell silent, not because he had nothing more to say, but because for the first time the other's words did not hurt, did not judge, did not demand. They only understood him. The owl turned his head and looked toward the stars. When pain and loneliness are not understood, it hurts more. But when you understand it, it transforms you. You are not here by mistake. You are being tempered, and when the time comes, others will come. So, young wolf, embrace your solitude, make it your teacher, and you will see that you will find your place in the world. The wind blew softly through the trees. The stars seemed to shine brighter, and for the first time in a long time the wolf did not feel lost. Now he understood that his solitude and pain had a purpose. The next morning, when the first rays of the sun began to filter through the icy trees, something changed in the wolf's heart. He no longer walked aimlessly. He no longer moved just by instinct or necessity. Now he had direction. He had purpose. He began to see beyond himself. It was no longer just about surviving, but about growing, learning, leaving a mark. His steps, once wandering, were now firm. Every howl had a meaning, every action, a message. His solitude no longer consumed him. Now he wore it like a sacred cloak as part of his history and as his teacher. He was ready for what was to come, with his heart in silence, but attentive. The wolf, although still walking alone, hunted better. He moved with precision, with intuition. His senses were sharper, his body stronger, his mind more awake. He had stopped surviving and started living. And although he failed many times, he did not give up. He had learned to read the forest, to listen to the wind, to recognize the signs of life. And although the solitude was still there, it no longer weighed the same. Now it was company, not condemnation. one day walking through the forest with a firm gaze, and the shadow of the past already far from his shoulders, fate moved again. And it was in that moment of clarity that life presented him with something he didn't expect. Others like him. First it was one, a lone wolf, with sad eyes, but a strong soul. He had walked far carrying his own wounds, also formed in the hardness of exile and solitude. Then came another, younger, more impulsive, but with the same fire in his gaze. He had lost everything, but not his desire to fight. They did not unite out of necessity, but out of vision. They were not looking for a leader, but they found one. Because the majestic wolf did not impose his power, he transmitted it with his example. He did not speak of pain, he embodied it. He did not speak of resistance, he was resistance. And so, without seeking it, without planning it, he formed a new pack, a pack of lone wolves that now walked together, not out of weakness, but because they shared the same story. They learned to hunt together, to protect each other, to trust. What before they did alone, now they did as a true team. They coordinated every movement in their hunts and rarely failed. They took care of each other. Now they faced bears, mountain lions, and other predators, and they defeated them. And every victory led by the majestic wolf made them stronger and stronger. The majestic wolf's leadership was not imposed with force. It was earned with wisdom, example, and vision. And little by little that small pack grew. Other wolves who had also experienced rejection, loss, and loneliness joined because they found in him and his group something they did not find anywhere else, meaning, belonging, purpose. In time, that pack became legendary, the strongest, the most respected, the most united in the entire region, guided by the one who was once banished and walked alone for a long time, the one who turned every wound into a lesson, every fall into character, every night of solitude into inner strength. His howl was no longer that of a lone wolf. It was the echo of a life built with scars, a voice that spoke of overcoming, of purpose, of what it means to be truly free in the midst of solitude, and that in his worst moment chose not to surrender. And so the majestic wolf not only survived, he transformed. He went from being a rejected solitary to becoming a guide, a leader, a legend. But not because he sought it, but because he was faithful to his path, despite the pain, the solitude, the cold, and the silence, because he understood something that few comprehend. Sometimes life isolates you not to destroy you, but to form you. It takes you away from everything known so that you find your true strength. It leaves you alone so that you discover who you really are. If today you are watching this video, you feel like that lone wolf, feel fortunate. Remember that you are not lost, you are in formation. Take advantage of your solitude, embrace it as a teacher who teaches you, work on yourself, and do not give up. Every dark night, every blow, every rejection is shaping you, and the day will come when you will understand why that path fell to you. Because the greatest and strongest are not born in comfort, they are forged in silence, in struggle, in solitude. Now tell me in the comments, do you identify with this story? Have you also had to walk alone in silence while the world did not see your struggle? If this video has made you understand that solitude is not the end, but the process that prepares you, then this story has already fulfilled its mission. Don't forget to like, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that impact, that heal, that awaken. But don't go yet. Remember that on your screen there are more stories like this, because if you liked this one, I assure you that the one waiting for you will also like you, and maybe even more. Thanks for making it to the end. See you in the next one.